Today we're going to talk about ear infections. You would think that this would be a simple topic. The ear gets infected, you get antibiotics, you get over it. That is simply not true. The ear is quite complicated, and ear infections, which is a big term for a lot of things, really should be talked about. So we're going to go a little bit through the anatomy of the ear. The external ear canal is here, the eardrum, the middle ear, and then the inner ear. The external ear canal is designed to focus acoustic waves. These are just like waves that fall on the beach and you can hear the crashing. The acoustic energy is then changed to mechanical energy by vibrating this little thing. It's the first transducer, for those of you who like physics, of the ear. Then this vibrates the fluid chamber, which vibrates a membrane which has little nerve cells called hair cells on them. They tickle the hair cells, and the mechanical energy is then changed to electrical energy and sent to the opposite side of the brain, and then we hear. So the first type of ear infection that we're going to cover in this segment is external ear infection. And we would all know this as swimmer's ear. We got our ear wet, it stayed wet, bacteria got in there and can cause an external otitis, which is also caused a swimmer's ear. Now, there are many different types of external auditory canal infections. The first is the swimmer's ear, which is a bacterial thing. The hot tub bacterium, which is Pseudomonas, very commonly causes inflammation of the skin of the ear canal. And the skin of the ear canal includes this layer of the tympanic membrane or eardrum. So the outer layer of the tympanic membrane is actually skin. So this whole thing can become inflamed. When it becomes inflamed, you get edema, which is swelling. That kind of narrows the canal and decreases the aeration, and so it stays moist. The bacteria get in there, they eat the skin cells that are falling off from the infection, and that requires an antibiotic drop to fix. Another type of external auditory canal infection, or otitis externa, is fungal otitis externa. This is different than swimmer's ear, which is like, man, my ear really hurts. I went swimming last week and I'm really paying for it. This is more of a, I have this itching in my ear. It's uncomfortable, but doesn't really hurt. It's more aggravating than anything else. And, within the last couple of weeks, I think my hearing is down. And you look inside the ear with one of our microscopes, and you actually see just fungus like you would see a bread mold. It's often black in color. It has cotton appearance to it under the microscope, just like a bread mold would. And that occurs over time. It doesn't create a lot of pain and is a very common form of ear infection that we see. Occasionally that can be associated with a perforation of the eardrum, but usually is able to be suctioned from the ear canal under the operating microscope and some powder put in there that creates a slightly negative pH that the fungus doesn't like, and with frequent cleanings we can clear that without too much difficulty. So it's a little more aggravating because you have to come back every week for cleaning until it's done, and it's kind of like athlete's foot of the ear, which, for anybody that's had athlete's foot, it's kind of difficult to eradicate, and you kind of have to keep on it. And so the same is true for the fungal otitis externa. Sometimes bacterial external ear infections can migrate outside of the ear canal and cause an infection of the ear itself, what's called the external ear or the pinna. And as we all know, this is made of cartilage. It's got nice body to it. So cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. It depends on the tissue that's around it to diffuse nutrients to it. So it's very vulnerable when it gets infected. And you can lose cartilage and have floppiness of the ear if this infection is not treated very early. So this is called a perichondritis, or an inflammation outside the cartilage of the ear. Usually you see something called peau d'orange, which is a fancy French word for it looks like orange skin. And you see that kind of puffy orange skin appearance to it. It's exquisitely tender. It's more common in diabetics or people who have some immune dysfunction, but can occur in anybody. That's one that has to be treated with very particular antibiotics against Pseudomonas. And if that doesn't work within the first 24 to 48 hours, can sometimes require hospital admission for intravenous antibiotics to get more antibiotic concentration to the ear itself. Very important to recognize and treat early to avoid a deformity that can be permanent.